What's going on, everyone? We are picking up this shop build. In the last episode, we made this gravel base, and today we're going to put a floor on it. So in this episode, we're going to take a look at things like the floor frame, the spacing of the wood. Now, having said that, this is really going to be specific to my shop. It depends on what you're going to use your accessory structure for. So again, if it's a shed, it's not going to be carrying a lot of weight. You can open up your spacing a little bit. And by spacing, I mean how far apart the joists are, the type of lumber that you're using. But I'll point out some things to consider as we make this one. So let's jump into it and get some work done. One thing I wanted to do in this video is actually call out a few of the specific tools. This is not a one size fits all. There's lots of different things you can use. All right, starting with the tool belt here, these are the things I keep on me at all times: pencil, utility knife, and tape measure. I think that this hammer is older than me. A speed square. I've actually opted for this smaller speed square. I think they call it a trim square. And then also a chalk line, something to drill holes or put in fasteners. And then a saw. Use a framing nailer and then a coil siding nailer. Always bring a miter saw. Lastly, down here, obviously, since I have an air gun, we have an air compressor. And you can't go anywhere without music, because if not, work gets really boring. Okay, so let's talk about this so far. I have the rim. It's connected to these 4x4 pieces of treated lumber, or 4x4 skids. This is very common to just see this by itself, and that's the only shed base. Not doing gravel, not doing anything else, is just placing it on 4x4 skids. So what I wanted to do, though, is not only did I want to have the look and the stability of a gravel base, but I also wanted this to be as low profile as possible. And I wanted to be able to support a 2x4 floor base. So typically when you do something this big, you're probably looking at 2x6 at least. But I wanted to go 2x4s and increase the amount of skids and increase my spacing. So it's very common for a shed floor to only be 24 on center. I wouldn't recommend anything less than 16 inches on center. I'm going to go a foot, mainly because, like I said, I'm going to put a lot of weight into this. So just keep that in mind for when you're doing yours. Really depends on the weight you're going to put in there. This is what I wanted to go with, but for you it may be slightly different. I'm going to go ahead and put these floor joists so we can get the sheeting on. Looking at these floor joists, you can probably tell that they're not exactly straight. Rarely is lumber, especially lumber that's going almost 16 feet, is going to be straight. So I'm going to put some blocking in there to ensure that those gaps and that spacing is good right down that middle, and then it's ready for subfloor. And then lastly, the thing I need to think about before I put on the floor is this square. So what I can do for that is I can measure from this point here over to this far point here, and the same thing here over to this far point. If those numbers are the same, then it is square. The shed base is mostly square, and that's how I laid out the floor currently. However, I need to make sure that it is exactly perfect before I put on the plywood subfloor. One thing also, I'm going to throw in some screws into this double rim plate here just to make sure that it is all nice and secure. Okay, so my floor is officially framed. I have blocking in there to make sure the spacing remains consistent throughout the entire span of the floor. It also adds some additional stability. Man, sweat's going right into my eye. I planned on doing this later on in the day after work. It's still hot, and I don't know why it's so humid out here, but anyway, definitely ready to move on to the next step, which is that subfloor. Tongue and groove OSB subfloor is very common, and that's what I'm going to be using on mine. You'll notice me jumping on the board a little bit, or possibly using a hammer and a 2x4 to pound that groove together, but I want to make sure that those are square and that they are seated properly before I start nailing it off. Okay, just finish it up. We have a floor. So the only thing that I have left to do is nail off each of these sheets. If you paid attention, I only put in enough to be able to get them down. In fact, nailing off plywood is one of my favorite things. I remember being a kid, and if my dad asked me to nail off any type of sheathing, it was actually a blast, mainly because you just get a whole bunch of nails and a nail gun and go to town. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that to finish this up. I need to get enough nails in the rim of each piece and the field, so the edges and the middle of each one. So as I nail this off, that'll wrap up this video of putting in a shed floor. And again, if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. I'm happy to go through anything that I can, and hopefully this again helps you out in deciding what to do for your own accessory structure in your yard, and we'll see you on the next one.